Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast. My name is Monty Wyatt, and I'm here to take you on a journey into the world of coaching, exploring its many different facets and uncovering its profound impact on individuals, businesses, and executives alike. We'll be delving into real-life case studies combined with in-depth research from coaching experts to give you a better understanding of why coaching works today. So if you're ready to begin your exploration into the power of coaching, then let's get started. Before we start today's episode, here's a short message from Adding Zero's Executive Development. As CEO, you demand performance and results from your team. If you're committed to developing a cohesive, driven organization that achieves successful outcomes every single month, we need to talk. It's time to see how organizational and executive development from Adding Zeros can help. We focus on strategic planning, executive coaching, team alignment and engagement, organizational culture, and clarity of implementation. Contact me, Monty Wyatt, by booking an appointment at AddZerosNow.com. That's AddZerosNow, AddZerosNow.com. If you're ready, now is the time. I have 2 coaching spots available for 2024. Lock in your team today. Now let's begin today's episode. Welcome to the Why Coaching Works podcast, where we talk about the impact of coaching, growth of businesses, and personal development. I'm your host, Monty Wyatt. And if you are a CEO, a business owner, or executive, then this is the show for you. We call our audience the achiever because you're always striving for the next level. I'm really looking forward to the conversation with our guest today because we're going to learn a little bit about what a difference between a boss and a leader is and learn about some different experiences that he's had and coaching and being coached. And so our guest is Dave Ferguson. He's an internationally respected executive coach, speaker, facilitator, and author. And he coaches in the areas of leadership and personal development. He helps business owners, executives, top management leaders, political leaders transform how they communicate, connect, and grow their leadership roles. As a corporate leader turned corporate coach, Dave's experience uniquely qualifies him not only to coach and support leaders and their teams, but to understand their distinct challenges. His mission is to equip bosses to become leaders and leaders in creating their legacies. So, Dave, welcome to Why Coaching Works podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to connect again.
Absolutely. It's been quite a while. We were just talking. It's been a long time. It's good to connect with another executive coach.
Yes, sir.
Well, you know, I gave a little teaser about boss versus leader. Just give us a little teaser. We'll come back to it, but I want to hear what your view of boss versus leader is.
Well, you heard what the piece there that I help, bosses become leaders and leaders build legacies. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between the two right there is that leaders intentionally will be developing their legacies. And a lot of people that I define as bosses just don't have that plan of action in most cases. So, and obviously with coaching, we can help with that. But, boss or leader was for me, I wanted to write a values-based leadership book. Because there's so many books out there on leadership, and they talk about these are the values leaders should have, but they never talk about the boss component. And so what I did was I took 16 values that I believe leaders should have in their life and in their business and in their leadership, and I just compared the way I had seen bosses work with that value versus how leaders work with that value. And so what people can do is they go through the book, and they were able to do as they went through the book was they could read each chapter on a value, okay? And then at the end of the chapter, answer a couple of questions and go, okay, based on this value, do I act more like a boss or more like a leader? And if I don't like my answer, do I want to change it?
Right.
So it was that simple, really. And values are, I do a lot of values-based coaching because I think when we can connect people's goals to their values, the percentage of success skyrockets. And when you as a coach help them do that, now you can hold them accountable to both the values piece, the accountability piece, but also the goal piece that comes with all of it. So I think, for me, that was just a simple values book. I call it very simple because I wrote it simply because I wanted teens to be able to read it too. So it's done well through the years.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Just for fun, share with us one or two of those values that you talk about.
Well, so it's just so when I first started the book, when I first wrote the book, I put vision as the first chapter, right? That makes sense, right? You start with vision, right? And then I started looking at statistics about how little people actually read. Now, for you and I, that's hard to understand because we're avid readers and listeners. And I think leaders should be. It's the way we learn. It's one of the ways we learn. And so I started reading that most people, even that buy a book, some don't even open it, and and very few even get past the first chapter. So I said, if I do vision the first chapter, that might be the only chapter they read. So what if I move perseverance to the first, right? So I moved perseverance and I challenged them in the first chapter to continue in the book. Okay. So vision was the second chapter, right? So how do they look at those two things differently, right? I mean, I think, leaders persevere, they both persevere. Okay. I think bosses um, persevere more from a management standpoint, a strict goal oriented management standpoint, and a leaders, I think, lead and persevere and invite people to persevere, because sometimes we do have to invite people to persevere, based on values, and based on almost personal development, not just hitting the 5 goals we have at the corporation.
Yep.
And so, that's a different way to look at perseverance. And then vision, I think, there's a lot of cases of companies that I believe were led by bosses that never advanced their vision. So they
Mhm.
had a vision, they kind of hit it, but it got stale. Sears, Kodak, Blockbuster, I could go on and on, right? And they did not have what I call my leader's ladder is advancing the vision, where you as a leader and leadership team, you've always got to be moving that ball down the field. Okay. And, bosses can get their heads down and work hard and get stuck on the now.
Yep.
And I call it win. What's important now? That's important, but it's not everything. And I think sometimes with leaders, and as we develop more leaders and into this mindset, yes, what's important is now is very important and urgent in some cases, but also at the same time, you've got to be flexible to be working on the future and the people and the leadership development, the people development at the same time. So people, like I write in the book here, that 99% of your people, if you're a boss, 99% of the people come to work for one reason. It's not you, it's a paycheck. You can change that by becoming a good leader. People will come to work because of you, and yeah, you pray it, you incent them well.
I love that distinction. It's short term versus long term, and very much what's in it for now and versus the long term. I love that. That's good.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's good. Well, I appreciate that insight. We'll probably come back and talk about that a little bit more, but tell me a little bit of how you got into coaching. You've been in coaching for quite a while, and would love to hear how you got into it.
Yeah, I'm going into I'm finishing my 16th year in coaching full time. Um, and that in itself is not to toot our horns, but that's a success case because coaching, like some businesses, people come in and out of, and they don't persevere. It's
Yep.
not easy. So yeah, I'm going. I'll be starting my 17th year here. And I came out of the corporate world. I did my 21 years in corporate America. I did very well. Interesting. I talk about I worked for some bosses and I worked for some leaders. Okay. Probably early back in my 20s, I didn't know the difference. But as I evolved and really got to work with different people, I figured it out. I talk about some of them even still today. Like I was just telling a story about one of the best leaders I ever worked for the other day. So, I got into coaching because I didn't want to work in corporate America anymore, not directly. Okay. I had 2 companies in 21 years. I was very blessed. I traveled the world, wasn't home a lot. Um, and it took a little bit of a toll. It does take, when you're gone like that all the time. So I understand the busy executives. And I was also a Tony Robbins fan at that time. So as soon as I kind of made the decision, I started going to Tony's events. Okay. And then I just literally, I just started. I researched. I got a couple of certifications along the way. And certifications in coaching are hit and miss sometimes.
Yep.
But I picked up something through every one of them. Okay. And then really just the experience. And I think Coaching executives, it's kind of, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And I like to say, chances are, if you are going through something or thinking about going through something, I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt too. So it's pretty easy once you get the relating piece down, which I always think is the first step of any kind of a relationship anyways. You've got to learn, you got to find some common ground between each other. So that's the simple way I got in. You know, it wasn't easy to begin with. You had, you know, you really had to, you had to go at it. I remember joining, in fact, our mutual friend, I remember when I made the decision, I'm gonna have to clean up the language a little bit, what he said with me, but you'll get it. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing something. Can I come meet with you? You know, and I lived in Lake Norman then, which he was living in Charlotte then. So, you know, it was a 30-minute drive to meet each other. So of course, where do we meet? The bagel place, Brugger's Bagels, right? And I tell him what I do, and he said, I'm just going to put this the nice way. He's basically said, I can't stand coaches. And then after a while, we're talking about it, I go, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to do executive stuff. I'm not going to get all woo-woo-y, and I'm not, okay, all right. So I just said to him, I'm like, give me some advice. Give me a couple of things. What should I do? And he said, become famous locally first. He goes, you've been gone all these years. Nobody even knows you. I go, I know. I don't even know my neighbors. Right. So he did. So I joined chambers. And second thing he told me, this is probably the best advice he ever gave me. He said, start writing and get published locally. Find a newspaper that will publish you locally. And I was blessed to find one. And I was blessed that they ended up acquiring 17 other papers. So I had an Ask Coach Dave column in the papers, and it really just, it took off from there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
It was
great.
yeah, it was a good, I mean, I had some, you know, little wise down the road, I had some more help from John Maxwell and a few other people, but because I always like to ask people that are, say, mentors or people that are ahead of me in the industry,
Absolutely.
what can I do? Help me out. Right.
That's how
And
we
of
learn.
course, with both of those guys, I helped them do things in their business as well. So it was a really just a good, they're good, healthy relationships.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on your 16th year and looking
Yeah.
forward to a lot more. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
great. You know, we've mentioned the word coaching quite a bit already. You know, I always like to ask, how do you define coaching? What does it mean to you? And because everybody's got their different twist on it. And I want to hear how you define it.
Man, mine's so simple. It's not funny. Because it's funny. I have my license plate on my car says coach, and it's not because of ego. Because what does a coach do? It takes you from one point to another point. Right? So really, when people ask me, so what you doing? I literally go, let's say we talk about these 6 or 7 areas of your business and your life, okay? And you pick a point A from where you are in all those areas right now. We sit down and talk about it, okay? I go, if you could have the ultimate point B in those 7 or 8 areas, what would the point B be? Okay? And so all coaching does is help that person go from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. I don't put like it's, you know, I know you know me. I am a simple guy. I use a lot of acronyms. I have no more than 6 letters in anything I use. I am a really simple guy because I think if you make coaching simple, the success rate goes through the roof. If you make
Absolutely.
it complex, it becomes a mystery for people sometimes, and it puts them actually in suspense instead of growth. So I do like to keep it simple, and that for me it is. I'm taking you from point A to point B. You just tell me where the points are for you.
And so many times people don't even know where their point A is.
No, that takes a little work sometimes. It's an enjoyable part of, the beginning of the coaching relationship.
Yep.
Although I've been told many times the people that have come to me after they've had another coach that I've actually had people say to me, when does the coaching start? And I go, oh, it's started. You just don't realize it yet. Because a lot of coaches just go, okay, tell me what you want to accomplish next year. But I take them through a whole different self-awareness piece first and really just to get to know them so that we don't waste each other's time just shooting at goals. Because if, we go back to people's whys, right? If I can find the why for those 7 or 8 areas in people's lives and they really agree to it and we attach it to values, their success rate goes through the roof and it's proven.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
I love that simplicity of it. A to B, one
Yeah.
point to another point. And
Mhm.
I think that's a critical thing that, because so many people do make it difficult.
Oh,
And it's how can we help you? Whether you want to get help in your executive role or grow your business, you got to have two different places where you are today and where you want to be.
yeah. Yeah, if you talk to some of my clients, they would say he does it very simply and it helps me. I've got people 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 years. Like I don't do a lot of 1 year. They start at 1 year, but they don't very rarely do I have someone just a year. So
Yep,
we just build these long-term relationships and point A and point B change all the time.
absolutely.
Because once you get to B, you start a new A. And it really is that simple. A lot of people do it to themselves every year, right? Okay.
Reset the goals. Yep.
But how many people don't even get to point B every single year?
Hmm.
Right. And so I think coaching with, the right coaching and the right person, the right relationship, there's got to be a good mix. And you have to find some common ground. I think you can help people get where they want to go.
I love it. I love it. I'd love to hear an example from you of one of your executive clients and how you helped them get from A to B and what they grew in, how they grew themselves personally. Because I think that's, our audience is the achiever and they're always looking for ways to grow themselves. And every executive wants to go to that next level. And so I'd love to hear where they started and what you did with them to get them to that point
Mhm.
B.
Okay, well, that obviously I'm not going to mention names, but I can give you a guy. So it's an international firm that I've worked with for years. So occasionally I'll have to fly all to the east and to Europe and to meet with some of the people. And so very, very busy corporate atmosphere for this guy. Okay. Um, and he's from Ireland. Okay. But he leads a group of people that are headquartered in Singapore.
Hmm.
Okay. And it's a complete melting pot. Okay. There is a couple people from the one or two people from the US. There are people from all over the world in that office. Okay. I mean, I loved going there because for me it was just I got all these cultures and all these relationships and so it was a challenge for him because he gets, obviously he gets promoted into this role and now he is working with all different cultures. Okay. And in some well, everybody spoke English, but some of them spoke multiple languages. And so there was that. There was the culture piece, not only everybody's individual culture, but the culture of the organization, which us as leaders have to lead from. And so there was a challenge there, but and then the other challenge was he had to travel the world,
Hmm.
and he had a young family. This is stuff, a lot of coaches don't talk about because sometimes I have to become a life coach for leaders.
Yep.
Okay. And so he got very little time at home with his wife and young kids, and it tugged on him. So we really worked on ways to improve that. And some of those ways were simple things like I remember telling him, okay, when you're home, you're going to lock your cell phone in the trunk when you go out, right? Because we had to steal time.
Yeah.
He had to steal time, and I had to help him do it and hold him accountable. Okay, and actually brought his wife into some of the conversations because I needed her to help us. And so is that type of stuff. It's one of the things people don't think about. I think when they think about coaching is that most people are experts at their job.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff they're not experts at. And some of us get so in this. I did this in my corporate career, which is why I can speak to and why I can coach to it so successfully now. I um, neglected other parts of my life to have a great corporate career.
Hmm.
Okay, and I try to open their eyes to that way earlier than my eyes were open to it. And I got to tell you, in his case, it brought so much joy to me seeing the change there. Didn't happen overnight, but seeing the change. But we also then, because I was coaching, I don't know, 7 or 8 people at that organization all over the world, and we also started to change culture. which was really, really important. And we had a real big impact. Our coaching relationships had a big impact on on changing culture at the organization. And so what you had happier employees, you had more effective employees, you had people that stayed longer. Okay. If what it did for the bottom line was incredible too, and they didn't expect that with a culture change. You
Right.
know, I didn't even say that up front, like, let's work on this culture a little bit and you'll make more money. Didn't think about it. I didn't even say that to them because I didn't want that to be the bait, right? So you know, that's an example, and I've got several examples like that because I think it is, having been a busy executive who traveled a lot, you kind of know what you neglected because you feel the bruises, and then you start to hear them talk about the same stuff, and I'm going, okay, let's get a little deeper on this and let's talk about what we can do to fix it.
You know, I love that you shared that story because it's people don't think about those things, those personal aspects of it. And you can call it life coaching, you can call it whatever, but it is executive coaching because they're going through different things that the normal person doesn't, or that doesn't even know they're going through,
Yep.
and don't know how to handle it,
Right.
and because they think it's the norm,
Right.
and it isn't the norm, and it
Right.
shouldn't be the norm.
No, it's not. Well, we hear people today. I mean, I hear people today all the time. I mean, I live on an island, so you have to take a bridge to get over here. And people that don't live on the island but work on the island have to come across the bridge. And sometimes it's backed up. Like every morning, if you sleep in, it's going to be backed up. I tell people, how about you get up an hour earlier and find a gym over here, and you will never complain about the traffic. But they complain about the length of their work day, right? And then the hour each way or whatever, they add that on. I'm like, well, you know, I've coached some people that make your 10-hour day look like nothing. And look, that's not a negative comment. It's just to show, I think, the difference between some of these busy executives that are always gone. How do you help them steal time? John Maxwell used to call it can't see hours,
Yep.
right? But that was actually people actually working when other people couldn't see them. This is living when your family can see you. So you're not working for those, if you're home for 36 hours, okay, or 24 hours, you're not working.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I just think that so many executives don't even think about the possibility of making it work.
Well, we think so much about, if I go back to me, I'm like, hey, I wanted to be somebody. You know, I grew up a really poor kid. I got a great opportunity and I earned a great opportunity and I took full advantage of it. You know, I worked really hard. I listened to people. I followed leaders. I did the work, but I was a workaholic because I wanted to succeed on what I believe success was at that point. Okay. And I got what I wanted, but I didn't realize I was going to get the other stuff.
Yep.
You know, and luckily I had a leader that really, really helped me. He was not a coach, but he was kind of my coach because he was at one point my direct leader, and he saw something in me and he really, really just dug in, and he gave me so much wisdom and help and coaching, advice even.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you being coached a little bit. How has being coached yourself helped you in your business?
Oh, so I've been coached for, yeah, so I've had a coach for mm, I have had the same coach up until 2 years ago. I had for 9 years. Okay. I took a break and I went back to another coach about a year ago. And different types at this point, right? Yeah, it's you gotta be willing to walk the talk. I'm amazed at the number of coaches I ask to tell me who your coach is and they can't tell me because they don't have one.
Right.
You have to walk the talk, but also, yes, I mean I have point A's and I have point B's. And yes, I can graph it all out. I can chart it all out like I do with my clients. But don't you don't necessarily, you feel like you're stretching yourself, but a coach can stretch you further,
Hmm.
right? And you know, and I like, in my coaching, I say I like to stretch you, not stress you. Okay. And I like coaches. I like a coach that will challenge and stretch me, but not create complexity and stress in my life.
Right. That makes
So
a
some
big
people,
difference.
Yeah, coach. Look, coaching's look. I just a couple of conversations I had with people you and I could deem coaches, right? Jeffrey and John, and they're mentors more than coaches. But sometimes just asking questions, right? And taking advice and trying something that worked for them. Why not? If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of us in coaching that can really just hand stuff to people and go, try this. It's worked for me and it's worked for a lot of my other clients. Why reinvent the wheel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's something specific that somebody helped you, one of your coaches helped you through, just to give
Oh,
us an idea of
that's easy.
how coaches need to be coached as well.
It's easy balance.
Yeah.
I would so um I got written up years ago in a magazine it was called the Power Players, right? The article was a monthly thing they did on a power player in a city I worked in. And it's funny, a couple of my best friends always teased me about that. They even called me Double P for a while. Okay. But one of my buddies always used to say, are you always on? He goes, like, you're A plus all the time. Okay. So I had a coach help me get to become like a B plus. Okay. So I said I need to round things out, right? I need some balance. I need to be doing more than just building my coaching organization and my speaking business and creating content. I needed more. I needed to get back to some of my old good hobbies and habits that I needed to do. I needed to connect better and deeper with my family, who none of us live close to each other. You know, I had just things like that that I think people don't think about in coaching. Um, because the business part, yes, coaches, we help people in their business and in their careers, no doubt. But like I said, most people are experts at that.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff we're not experts at. And I was not an expert at balance. And that's probably the biggest help I've ever had is seeing that you can still be highly successful and be growing your business, but live a balanced lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Now there are people today who'll say I'm a little too balanced because I play golf too much or whatever, but you know, um, I'm also I've slowed my business down a little bit. So that's increased my balance.
I think that's one skill that everybody can learn at is balance. Because we all get focused on our career, we all get focused on making money or whatever it might be, and there's things that slip. And you got to figure out what's important to your life, not just your career. What's
Yeah.
important to your life?
Yeah. Well, like I talk about the wheel of life, and I know you would know what that is, but maybe some of your listeners don't. But basically, take a wheel of life with clients and myself, and I divide it up into 8 areas, and I go, okay, what's the 8 areas of my life? And my clients, what's the 8 areas of your life that are your top 8 areas? Yes, career, job is one, all for everybody, and then there's other ones: finances, fun, health, a spiritual piece for some people, all those different things, right? Other relationships, all those different things, whatever they are. Okay. And here's the thing, and I learned this in my corporate career. If you spend so much time on one spoke of that wheel, okay, some of the other spokes are going to break.
Yep.
Okay. At some point, right? And so you don't want to wait till the breaking point. And so the balanced wheel can do that for you. And it's I still use it all the time. I love it. It's simple. Like and it just works for you from a balance standpoint.
And it's all areas of your life where you should have goals, you should have direction, you should have focus on. And that's why it's called life, wheel of life, not
Yep,
just wheel of business.
yep,
And I think that's a critical point.
yep. And you got to have non-negotiables with yourself.
Absolutely.
I think
Very good. I love it. I love it. I want to come back to being a boss versus a leader. And if there was one tip that you'd give our audience to be a better leader versus being that boss, what would that one tip be?
slow down, ask really good, smart questions, so they can't be answered with yes, no, or maybe. Those are dumb questions. Ask really good, smart questions, and then sit back and really listen. Don't act like you're listening. Really listen. So just I love to ask people questions and they go, "Wow, nobody's ever asked me that." I always have a goal with everybody, even people I meet. I could be out to dinner or out listening to a band or at the golf course, and I'll be playing with somebody I hadn't played with. I'll ask them some question, and they'll go, "No one's ever asked me that before." And I think, it's a challenge. I challenge leaders to do that. Come back to me and tell me how it went. Like, tell me how it went. What'd you ask them that made them say, "No one's ever asked me that"?
Yep.
Because if that's the answer, then that's a great question you just asked them.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah.
So I guess John wrote a book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, right?
Yep.
Um,
No,
but
that's
I just add to it, and then they listen. They actually listen to the answers.
too many times we have the answer in our heads and we're just doing it out of courtesy.
Yeah, go through the motions.
We're just going through the motions.
And who does that serve? Nobody.
Nobody. Absolutely
Nobody.
not.
Doesn't serve anybody. So yeah, leaders do that. They ask good questions. Leaders dig in with you too. It's not a I talk a lot about teamwork in my coaching. The leader can't always be on the front line, but he can show support for the front line. Okay. And there's ways to really do that the people really feel that you have their back and that you are leading them, maybe from a different level. But the other part too about leadership, and I get this question all the time: how do I lead this new generation? Okay, so I've been getting it for a long time now, so I guess we're through millennials and all the different gens, right? And I go, you lead them exactly the way you've led people your entire career. You lead them from where they're at, not from where you're at.
That's right.
So we have to go down to where they are in leadership and develop them to get where they want to go in leadership.
And people forget that. They think it's about them as a leader.
Yeah, they think, they actually become a boss because all they're doing is directing. They're not developing. That's a simple thing, right? That bosses direct, leaders develop. There is a big difference there. And some people want to be told what I need to accomplish today. And direction is some ways good, but they also want to know why.
Yeah.
Right? And is there some tools or some advice or some help you can give me to get better at completing this?
Mm-hmm. That why is a magical thing.
Yeah, and that's why I always go back to the values thing, is because I can't speak for everyone, but I know personally, and people that I've worked with in coaching, generally your why is connected to your values. So if you have that going, so if you have your goals and your why and your values all in sync, how could you not succeed?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love, our why is very similar because we grew up in the corporate world and we saw leaders that weren't necessarily leaders. We saw them being bosses. We saw them being true managers and not developing people, not guiding people, not helping them see the why, just do this.
Yep.
And that's a big why because the world needs it.
Yeah, I talk about too, early in my career, I got into this, I got selected into this leadership development program from a financial institution that identified some gaps in their leadership, and they needed to fill those gaps. So they needed people that could get there quickly. And so they would put me with different managers, I'd say at this point, okay, 6 months here, 6 months here. And so I would develop under different people and doing slightly different things in the finance world. Okay. And literally, I have speeches about the bosses and the leaders just in that program. Okay. Because one of the guys I worked with early on, great guy, but total boss. He'd stand over your shoulders, like he'd come over and straighten up your desk and like making sure you were on doing everything. He'd check on you, come back from lunch, he'd look at his watch, he just did all this stuff. And the people that were in his office had worked with him for years. And what I found out is they stuck it with him because if you worked for him, you made a lot of money because he was highly successful from a management standpoint and hitting the corporate numbers, but people couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
So they'd all talk to me about like, how do you, I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to be out of here. So I'm just learning and right. But then I went right after that, I went to a guy that was complete leader. I mean, it was so black and white. It was unbelievable. The difference in the two. Same organization, different departments, both had been around the same amount of time. Okay. Just completely different from a boss style and a leadership style. And it's fun. I talk about that from the stage because it's fun. There's some funny parts to it, but we don't have time to get into that. But
Oh,
um,
that's
it's
fantastic.
fun. Yeah, it's fun.
It is. What's the most enjoyable thing you like about being a coach?
Um, I get a lot of joy. It touches some of my values, helping people succeed. And I know that's very simple and probably, you know, something every coach says, right? It's like a lot of realtors say, I just want people to have the American dream. Right? Um, I get a lot of joy out of helping people even succeed that much
Yeah.
because they're better today than they were yesterday, or they're further along in the coaching process going from point A to B than they were last week. It's funny. I got an email from a woman leader I've coached for quite some time now. And we're working on her exit strategy from corporate, and she's going to actually start a coaching business, a different type of coaching business. Um, and so we're working on the transition. And like I recommended she go to this retreat. Okay. And she went to it and she sent me this like I literally called her when I got the email this morning because I had to hear it. Because she was so happy that she spent the 4 days and there was so much joy. I could just tell. And she's that kind of person anyway, but I could tell she was over the top.
Yeah.
So that type of stuff, um, I don't know if that doesn't, I don't know if I don't know if that doesn't make someone feel like they're adding value to people. I don't know what does, right? Because joy, we toss the word around joy a lot lately. It's something I've used a lot in my coaching, and I share that with my clients when they succeed. I'm like, and they thank me, and I'm like, it brings me a lot of joy to see you accomplish this.
Hmm.
It really does.
And that makes them feel good too, that they're achieving something and someone's proud of them because may not hear it in their job or at home that someone's proud of them achieving something.
They have a partner in the process. I call that.
Yep.
They have a partner in the process, and it's I talk about leading across a lot. I know you're familiar with that. Okay. But we lead across. I lead across in my coaching relationships. Okay. We're a team. Okay. Now I'm not out there doing the work for them. I'm guiding the process, asking the good questions, helping them put it all together, holding them accountable. Okay. Um, but it is a team effort. And I think the leading across piece is really, really important. Doesn't get used enough in business, and it definitely doesn't get used enough in coaching. Because there are a lot of people out there in the coaching industry that think coaches are just supposed to ask a bunch of questions.
Right. Right.
And that would be coaching for dummies in my world. Because honestly, I could give them 1,000 questions on a piece of paper. Oh, now you're a coach because you've got 1,000 questions on a piece of paper? No, you're not. You're someone that can ask questions that are written down for you. Okay, so I think you have to do more. I get some people argue with me over that all the time, and I never win the argument, but I don't care. I know what works.
That's right.
Yes, good questions are good, but that's not what we're supposed to do. There's a partner in a process part, and I think that's the most important piece. And I also think, from a coaching perspective, that's why it's allowed me to have really long-term coaching relationships, which allows me to be a coach and not a salesperson.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. You've given some great insights, and I hope our audience, the achiever, gains some great things. And I've got another question I want to ask you, but I want to point out a couple things that you shared today that I think our audience would benefit from. Coaching is one point, taking you from one point to another point, from A to B. I think that's the most simplistic way I've heard from a lot of people, and I think that's fantastic. And a coach stretches without stress. That's the goal. I want to stretch you, but I don't want to stress you. And I think that's the powerful thing of coaching is we want you to achieve more, but it shouldn't be stressful for you. It should
A
help.
lot, yeah, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I want to hire you as a coach, but I'm too busy right now. It's going to
Right.
stress me out." And I'll say that I go, I don't want to add any stress to your life. If you have stress, we can talk about it, but I don't want to add any. I want to stretch you as a human being so you can reduce that stress.
That's right. Absolutely. We're stressed too much today. We have to have help eliminating that stress.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the power of it. And I love that last point of leading across. I think we talk about leading your team, leading above you, or influencing above you, but you never really hear about leading across. And I think that's a powerful thing between departments, between peers. You got to lead across to others, and that's a powerful statement.
And by the way, that works at home too,
Yeah,
right? Leading
absolutely.
across at home.
You got to have wins at home too.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate your time. And, the last question that I always like to ask our guests is if you had one tip that you'd give to someone that's considering being coached, they're considering being coached, what tip would you give them?
If you're considering being coached, do it. Right? If you're thinking about it, do it. That would be a simple one. Find the right coach fit for you. Right? Oftentimes I get people and they go like, I take people through this exercise on the first coaching call or Zoom or in person, and it's a really neat exercise. But it's a kind of get to know each other exercise. I
Yep.
kind of tell my life story. I have them tell their life story, and I've got a 22-year-old I'm coaching right now who's new to the executive world, and he was like, "Well, we're not going to have anything in common, right?" I go, "Watch." By the time we were done, he told his story after me telling my story. He was like, "Wow, I was wrong." Yes, right? If you can find common ground, if you're looking for it,
Absolutely.
right? And if you share and you're humble and your values, all that, like you'll find common ground. I can find common ground with anybody, and I only need one thing, common ground, to be able to move people from A to B. Now, if I get 5 or 6, it's better. But if I can get one, that's how I get my foot in the door. If I can get one piece that we relate on, we have common ground, I can start to help you move.
That's brilliant.
Because
It
some
is.
people say, "Oh, I looked you up and you're not going to be my kind of coach." I'm like, "Okay. We don't even know each other. All you know is what you read on Google."
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
Uh,
Well, this has been fantastic. I've enjoyed getting caught up with you again and hearing the impact that you're making. And I think that's the whole value of why coaching works is it because you're getting results. You're making an impact on the world, your local community and the people in it. And that's the whole point of coaching, in my opinion, is to make an impact.
well,
And so yeah.
it's been great to reconnect, and thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, to our audience, make sure you like it, make sure you subscribe, and keep listening to our show. And make sure you join us for the next episode of habits to get into on being a great student and leader as well. So, thank you, Dave, and look
Thanks.
forward to chatting again soon.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Thank you for listening to the Why Coaching Works podcast. I hope this episode has helped you see the individual, business, and executive impact, growth, and development that coaching provides. Please take a second to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Each review helps me impact more people just like you and make a difference in this world. See you on the next episode of Why Coaching Works.